So you want to get into airsoft but only have a $500 budget? Don't worry, we'll be going over everything you'll need to get out on the field and have a good time. What's up guys, it's Kelty from Belty Airsoft, and if this is the first video you've seen from me, I make discussion, review, and gameplay videos to help you have a better time in this hobby. So if that interests you, consider subscribing. So $500 gives you some wiggle room to get the essentials and some nice to haves, which is why I set the budget here. Also, if you haven't played Airsoft yet, I would strongly suggest renting first to see if you actually enjoy it, because it doesn't make sense for you to go out and spend around $500 and realize that you don't like this hobby. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. First order of business, you're going to need good eye pro. Emphasis on good. It's important not only to protect your eyes, but to also actually see well, which means getting something that can resist fog and be comfortable for extended periods of time. So there's two main styles of eye pro in Airsoft: goggles and paintball masks. If you're going with goggles, you'll most likely either want or need lower face protection depending on where you're playing. I would recommend going with the revision line of goggles and the half mesh, half nylon style masks. From what I've heard, both of these products are good for comfort and keeping fog away. I personally don't have any experience with either of these because I run a paintball mask, so you can see what other options would suit you best. Just make sure it's ANSI rated so you don't run the risk of losing an eye. If you want to get a paintball mask, a good option would be the HK Army KLR mask. These have replaceable lenses and you can get different straps, earpieces, and visors for them. They're also great at keeping away fog. If you're still having fogging issues, you can use the X-Fog fan system, which attaches to the strap on your goggles or paintball mask, which should eliminate any other fog you may be having. Even if you don't use the products I specifically mentioned, you should consider using roughly $100 of your budget towards eye and face protection. In my example cart, I'll be adding the Revision Bullet Ant goggles and Matrix nylon and mesh mask. Secondly, you're probably going to want a rifle, and I would highly recommend starting out with an M4 since this will give you the most part support out of any airsoft gun. And if you need ammo on the field, someone will always be able to help you out because most players run M4s as well. A great entry-level line of M4s is the Specna Arms Edge or Core series. These offer solid performance out of the box, and the Edge comes with a MOSFET which will protect your trigger contacts, which basically means you'll have more reliability out of it. Overall, even if you don't choose these exact replicas, you should think about spending between $150 to $200 on your first airsoft gun. For my cart, I'll be adding the SAC-13 since I think it has some cool externals. Next, you'll need a battery to power your airsoft replica. Think about how much you shoot before buying this, because you can save a little bit of money or may need to spend a bit more depending on how much you like to shoot. Either way, choose a battery that will have enough mAh to get you through the day. Think of mAh as converting roughly to the amount of shots that you can get out of a battery. Make a decision based off of that and whether it will fit in your battery compartment. If you need to, measure out your battery compartment first and then check the measurements on the battery that you want to get. For the replica that I add to the cart, I'm going to choose the Matrix 1450 mAh butterfly battery. Regardless of which one you choose, I'd recommend setting aside about $30 for your battery. Next, you'll need some magazines. You could go with mid-caps, which have an internal spring that feed all the BBs through the chamber that you load with a speed loader. I'd recommend getting a set of 7 or 8 of these. Even if you don't use all of them at one time, you can have some as backup in case some of them break or aren't feeding right. My recommendation for your first mid-caps would be either the Elite Force or Mag brand mags. These have been known to feed well and are pretty durable despite their low cost. These come in sets of 8, which I would recommend getting since that's cheaper than buying 8 individually. I would also recommend picking up the Odin Innovation Speed Loader since that can load your mags in mere seconds. You could also go with high caps, which have a big reservoir that you pour BBs into, then have a wheel that you wind or a string that you pull on the bottom to load BBs into your gun. I would personally go with the Lonix Flash mags. These will wind up almost half your mag in just a few pulls, whereas most other high cap mags, you'll have to constantly wind them to keep feeding BBs. If you're going with mid-caps, I'd recommend spending about $50 to $70 on the mid-caps themselves, and then set aside an extra $40 for the speed loader. And if you're going with high caps, then I'd recommend picking up 2 to 3, and which should cost you around $30 to $60. For this cart, I'll be adding a set of 8 Mag brand mags as well as the Odin speed loader. Now that you've got your mags picked out, you're going to need a way to carry them. You could always use your pockets, but you might find that awkward and possibly lose a mag. A plate carrier or chest rig is a good way to carry your mags. and they won't set you back too much for entry-level models. For plate carriers, I would go with the Matrix Level 1 plate carrier, which comes with 3 integrated mag pouches. This amount is great for running high caps, but you might want to pick up the Condor triple mag pouch if you're running mid caps and depending on how trigger happy you are. You could also go with the Condor chest rig, which usually comes with 6 integrated pouches. Even if you don't go with one of these options, I would recommend setting aside $40 to $70 for your mag holding gear. For the imaginary cart, I'll be adding the Condor Rapid Assault chest rig, since this is the one that I started out with, and it was a great starter setup. You also want something to protect your hands, since getting shot on the fingers can hurt pretty bad and can draw blood depending on how close the shot is. At the same time, you don't want to lose all dexterity when doing the basic motor skills in Airsoft. A good brand to look into would be Mechanics, their fast fit gloves in particular, since while they are the cheapest, they offer a good balance of thinness and protection so that you can do all the tasks you need to on the field without having to worry about your hands getting shot. You should set aside about $15 to $20 for your gloves. I'll be adding the Mechanics EMG fast fit gloves to the imaginary cart. Next, you'll want BBs, which you could get at your local field, but for the purposes of this video, we'll include them in the budget. If you're playing indoor, you can get away with using 2.0s or 2.5s. If you're playing outdoors, wind plays a big factor in where your shots go, so getting 2.8s and above will help your BBs have a straighter flight path. You can go with most brands except for what you'd find at Big 5 and other sporting goods stores, as those are usually .12s and they can break your gun. This really depends on how much you go through, but I'd set aside about $20 for your BBs. I'll be adding the Elite Force .25s to my cart. Lastly, you'll want a dump pouch to put your mags in when they're empty. You could re-index them, but with entry-level plate carriers and chest rigs, they usually have bungee straps, which make it hard to do so. You could put them on the ground, but you could lose them or get them dirty, so I wouldn't do that either. So a dump pouch is a great way to dispose of your mags and still keep them on your person. I would go with the Phantom Gear dump pouch, since it can fit all the mags you need it to and it can roll up, which are the 2 main things you ever really want out of a dump pouch. I'd recommend spending about $15 to $20 for this item. I'll be adding the previously mentioned dump pouch to the cart. For the cart that I've been building, the final total is $479.44, which is under the budget, but of course with tax and shipping, will probably be a bit over $500. So if you really want to save some money, you could go with the high caps instead of the mid caps, which should save you about 35 bucks. And with that, you should be set to go out to your local field and have a good time. In the future, I would recommend getting some boots with some good ankle support and maybe some BDUs, but other than that, this is how I would spend $500 to get into Airsoft. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you made it this far, let me know by leaving in the comments what your favorite part was. I have a playlist above me that I think you'll get value from, so click on that if you're interested, and click on the circle of me to subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next one.